So my parents are weird. They're Asian and they are very traditional in a lot of ways. But the weird thing is, at the same time, they're very modernized as well. They text, they have updated touch phones, smartphones, whatever you call those gadgets that my parents play with. And they do a lot of things that very modernized people do. My father installed computers and the internet and dial up when it first came about, and he's been on the cutting edge of a lot of things for a long time. Having said that, you can't help but deny the fact that they are very Asian and traditional and Asian slash Chinese in a lot of ways. And this just goes to show you that, like, I mean, you kind of have to be proud of your culture. Like, this is your culture. And Chinese culture, I'm not gonna lie, it's just very, very different from American culture in a lot of ways. It's hard to even explain. There are a lot of similarities in terms of just how people are, but you'll be surprised. I mean, there's so many reasons why this is: infrastructure, politics, the fact that the civilization's thousands of years old. But today I want to talk briefly about one specific thing, and that is basically my mom. So, my mom is a very interesting person. Long story short, I love her to death, but she not only is she Asian, but she's also a bit of an emotional mother who's very controlled by her motherly urges and her emotions. And I do think all mothers have this to a certain extent. But my mom, I just don't know sometimes. And basically, she can do some really weird things. Have you ever heard of the setup where the mother tries to set up the child with a girl? I don't even know what to say about this because, if you already know her fashion sense is horrendous, you can kind of tell where this is going. And believe me, for Christmas and my birthday, even to this day, I'm getting the most weird waste of money. Like, again, I don't want to offend her. I love her to death. But you don't even want to know the type of stuff. Like, sometimes she's on point because I direct her, but she always wants to add her little spin to everything, and then it just completely changes everything. I remember one year I really wanted Ralph Lauren polo t-shirts. I watched some fashion videos. Well, technically it was a um, gaming channel who uh, and the guy who ran it, he was pretty good with girls apparently, and he knew his fashion more than I did. So I listened to him, and he recommended these Ralph Lauren polo t-shirts. Basically, they were collared short sleeve t-shirts, and it's one of the things Ralph Lauren is famous for. And lo and behold, in comes Christmas, and she kind of does something extra, but at the same time, it's always kind of what happens. It's like, it's extra, but this isn't exactly what I wanted. So long story short, boom, in it comes, and they're not t-shirts. It's this big box, and I'm so excited. And she's like, I bought more than one. It was some deal online, and she got them for cheap. And at first, I'm thinking, oh, please tell me it's not some Chinese counterfeit. Please, because that's a story for another day in itself. Um, However, it was not. And out comes not t-shirts, but these sweaters, and they were pretty good, honestly. They're these sweaters, and they were in different colors, and they were legitimate Ralph Lauren, and you could just tell by the embroidery, the packaging, and it was decent, but it was not exactly what I was looking for. Sweaters, t-shirts, very different thing, and apparently she wanted them in different colors, and so that was that. I still love her to death for it. Here's another thing. So another year, and this was very, very recently, I got, and again, this I'm starting to mature and get pretty old. So this was just out of the blue. Boom. Bright electric blue hoodie. I think the brand was New York or something. And so it had a giant Z or some big letter on the front. And it had a bit of camouflage rainbow coloring. And it was this bright blue hoodie. And so I'm just thinking, like, you could have given me 30 bucks. 30 bucks cash. But you know, there we go. We got this bright blue hoodie, and I don't know. I probably would have liked that a lot about 4 to 6 to 7 or 8 years ago. But that day, you know, especially when I was definitely starting to become more mature, not doing it for me. So again, I don't think I'm alone. I've talked to a lot of people. Um, I know some white friends who are pretty much just like this. You know, their grandma, their parents are just horrible. I hope it doesn't transcend generations. I feel like the next generation, when um, our generation grows up and becomes adults, we'll be like, yeah, we're not getting clothes for any of our children. And the next generation children will have other problems in terms of bad gift giving. And then we'll have the few people here and there who are just awesome parents and know what to do. But that's few and far between, in my opinion. Um, so that's that. And again, there's more stories I can tell you. Um, but let me just give you one more. Okay, so let's just say I was pretty old. I was a pretty old individual. And this one day, it happened to be my birthday. Lo and behold, I was surprised with this amazing excursion, this amazing event on my birthday. And guess what? It was the event I wanted to go to about 4 or 5 or 6 years ago. Medieval times. Basically what it is when you're a kid, you get to dress up. Or you don't necessarily have to dress up, but you go to this like theater, and they pretend that it's the medieval times, and you have these servers and waitresses, and they come in and they serve you this food from that time, which is all very good. You got chicken, vegetables, all this stuff, and then there's all these. It's like a story, and then we have sides, and basically, if you're on one section of the stadium, you're this color team, and then you have like knights and a little bit of skirmishes going on, and then you cheer for your color knight, and then eventually at the end of the whole performance, one team wins, and then we all go home happy. So this was pretty awesome, right? And I would have loved this thing a few years ago. Let's just say, I'm not going to give you my age, but I was pretty old. Okay, I was pretty old. And looking back, I tried my best, but looking back, it was just, you know, my face was just like, oh my goodness. And here I am going to these things, and lo and behold, my mom decides to do a little something extra. Sound familiar? So basically, she decides to buy like the deluxe package, which means you don't just go to the event, you get the full treatment. So basically, I'm there with like a couple kids and this other guy who seemed to be roughly my age, maybe a couple years younger. He was very nerdy, this white nerdy guy with glasses as well, and he seemed to be really into it. So that guy was kind of my age. The others were much younger, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old. And basically what they did was they dressed us up as kings with these like things on, and then they made us kneel down, and then there's this elderly gentleman, you know, with white hair who was dressed as a king as well, who would knight us and then announce us and celebrate our birthday on the speaker to the whole room of people who were waiting before the stadium opened for the event. And so, you know, I'm not gonna lie, you know, especially with my positive outlook on life now and trying to add humor into things, you know, honestly, it wasn't too bad. We actually got like these free big drinks of like this some sort of smoothie concoction, which really tasted really good. In addition to that, so I was happy for that. But long story short, it was embarrassing, and at times I cracked a bit. I went with my family, and I was just like, I'm too old for this. And then and here's my mom, and guess what? How she reacts to this. No, you're not too old. Look at that kid. Look at that kid. He's just as old as you. See? Look how into it. Look how into it he is. And there's that kid with the glasses who seems to be like near my height, near my age, maybe a few years younger. He's really into it, kneeling down, all this stuff, getting this stuff done. And I'm just there, looking at this old man who, bless his heart, I can tell this is his job and he likes it, but maybe not too much. It was a little bit of unease between us because I'm just like, how's it going? And then he's like, you can kind of tell like he's just like, a little bit of unease, but he does this whole thing. And then, we go on our way. So it was kind of embarrassing, but long story short, that's what happened. And yeah, it was, I tried my best to own it. And I definitely think if I would have redone it, I would have done it better and owned it even more. I remember trying to tell myself at that event, I would tell myself like, okay, if I was a hot girl that was, however old, in my early 20s, if I was a hot girl, however old I was, and I went to something nerdy, I would own it. Because I've seen that before. I've seen really hot women go to like nerdy events or things that I've been to before or things that are just seem very uncool, and they owned it and they loved it and they didn't care what anyone else thought. And because they were hot and attractive and because they love what they did, I was just like, that is really awesome. I used to do that myself, and that's really cool that you like that. And I thought it was lame, but because you love it and you owned it, I think that's pretty cool now, and I find it awesome how you are. So I tried that back. I kind of tried that, and I couldn't fully establish it. I really just, was just embarrassed a bit, and maybe more than a bit. And so long story short, we had fun with my family and so forth. Looking back though, again, I do think, I could have owned it more. And so I do think that the best healthy medium is just to do nerdy things that you freaking love to do, whatever it is. And in those situations, you yourself have chosen, not your mother, what you love to do. And from there, you can own it and rock it yourself. And maybe people will see that and realize how awesome you are. That may not always be true, but I do think, there is a bit of appeal to that. Maybe working on how attractive you look and not being a complete nerd with like hair all over the place might be able to help. I don't know really the full science behind this, but I really do think that there is a bit of added attractiveness that you can bring about if you just own and love what you do and just own who you are and what you love. And I don't know what it is. It won't guarantee you any girl you want, but I do think it's helpful. What do you guys think? Leave a comment. Do you agree or disagree? So that's all we want to say. I guess the last and epic story about my mother, this is where we get to the mother and emotional side, controls beyond logical. I mean, I've seen this so many times. It's come to a point where I've stopped trying to argue with this woman logically, bless her heart. Long story short, basically, by the way, check out my shirt. Figure out what these animals represent and leave a comment if you can figure it out. Anyhow, long story short, my mother did a bit of this arranged thing. I guess, she was just like looking and observing me from afar, and I guess she just assumed that I sucked with women and I wasn't doing well. Is that true? I would say, to a certain extent, yes, for sure. And so she decides to do this whole thing, And out of the blue, one day she's like, you know, this girl. It'd be nice to meet her. It's very casual how she says it, very neutral. And then all of a sudden, boom, all this stuff about how, oh yeah, she's very into this and these niche things on. She didn't say niche things. She was just like, oh yeah, you can talk to her about uh, business investing and business economics. I don't think she said it like that. I don't think she even understands what that means. But it was very clear to me that she knew or observed or found out that I was reading and learning about this material, and it's very niche. So I know for sure that this stuff is different from just standard business or what any normal business major would learn. Like that's just generic stuff. So basically, she says that yeah, I think she knows a lot about this. We could talk. And it was just very clear that this is not um, not true. It was a niche thing and so forth. So it was just